right? Some people on the Pacers side of things will call it nexting, like when people just go next to the next matchup. And that's something that happens on those pick and roll defensive situations where a guy fights over the screen and then their job is to basically pick up the next matchup. And then their help defender is going to show and kind of plug on that drive. When we talk about the Thunder, we talk about defense. When we talk about the Pacers, we talk about offense. And we quickly forget just how much the Pacers have improved defensively. And they've shown it all playoffs long. They've shown it all season long. And most importantly, they showed it in this pivotal Game 3 last night against this Thunder team. Honestly, I would argue that this was arguably the best game of the series when you want to take into consideration the change in leads by both teams and just how close both of these teams were and how weird this game really played out, particularly for the Thunder. And if you watch any of the press conferences like I do, I heard Chet or I think it was Jalen Williams talking about how you can punch first, but ultimately you got to keep punching or something along those lines. And it really, resonated with the way I felt about this game because the Thunder threw the first haymaker in that first quarter. They were looking like they were on point. They took an early little cushiony lead, and the Pacers, in Pacers fashion throughout these playoffs, they show it again. They up the intensity on the defensive end, and I'm going to get into some of these turnovers. I'm going to show the clips, and I do want to say that this episode is not going to have all the crazy graphics and, some extra stuff that I typically like to do, and part of that is because, one, I just got off of work, and two, the next game is already tomorrow. Why the NBA scheduled this random Game 4 as the only one in the entire series with 1 day in between, I have no idea. But, I'm not going to complain for having a game right away, but definitely, it is what it is. So I want to talk about just real quick the team data, right? And I'm just going to kind of zoom through it. Maybe I'll be able to put the graphic through. We'll see. Okay. So I'm looking at turnovers right now, and we'll get into those clips in a little bit. But, the Thunder, they were so out of whack. They looked like they had no idea that this was a finals game throughout a lot of these turnovers. I mean, shout out to TJ McConnell, man. Shout out to the Pacers in general. TJ McConnell with those 5 steals was just incredible stuff. The 5 blocks by Miles Turner, who has had an up and down series, though I would argue he hasn't been terrible either. He has hit a lot of big shots. And, he showed the defense. I think this was his best defensive game of the series. I mean, obviously, he had 5 blocks in this game, which is just incredible stuff. 2 of which came towards the end of the game. But, looking at this big picture-wise, right, the Thunder had more free throws. They shot better from 3. And one of the questions that I had about this series on the Pacers side of things was, can these guys win games against the Thunder defense if they shoot it at average level as a team or below average, right? Well, we got our answer last night, and they shot 33.3% from 3, and they won this game. And they didn't just win this game. It was a big statement showing that, hey, we don't have to have a great offensive night to compete with this great defensive team. We're going to show you that we can also play some elite defense. And, the Thunder, man, 45.5% from 3. I don't know how many games the Thunder are going to lose shooting that percentage from 3 because throughout these playoffs, they haven't shot it well. It hasn't been something that they've had to rely on to win games. Obviously, the story for them has been them taking care of the ball and then forcing their opponent into turnovers and scoring off of those turnovers. Now, we can get into that part right now. Indiana won the turnover battle, right? They only turned it over, 13 times to the Thunder's 17. And maybe one of those was like a Hardenstein kind of dive for a deflection that they had gotten, and then he kind of throws it away, and then obviously that counts as a turnover. So, say whatever you want about that one. But points off turnovers, which the Thunder are the kings of, they lost that battle as well. The Pacers, 21 points off those turnovers to the Thunder's 14. Just speaking to that defense. And, the fast break points for Indiana, right back on schedule, right? Back to their regularly scheduled programming. 17 fast break points to the Thunder's 10. I think Indy averages like 16 on the season, or maybe 15 or something like that. So definitely, turning defense into offense big time. Just getting up and down the floor at light speed like they like to do. Points in the paint, Indy won that battle, though it was tit for tat, 50-48. Second chance points, which honestly, I felt like Indy had way more second chance points. And for some reason, I'm looking at the Thunder and how they rebounded better than the Pacers. It did not feel like that at all when I was watching this game. I was expecting to look at this box score at the end of the game and look at like a 10 rebound deficit favoring the Pacers, but Thunder rebounded it better. The Pacers just made more out of that, and they got 13 points off of those second chances to the Thunder's 7. And another highlight to the Pacers defense last night, 24 deflections to the Thunder's 18. The Thunder have won the deflection battle all series long, last 2 games, and Indy turned that around. So, talking about those team stats, I mean, it is impressive stuff. OKC in the playoffs, by the way, they are at a staggering 10.6 steals per game that I'm looking at right here on my paper. And last night they had 6 steals. Pacers had 13 steals. So, Pacers just, and obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the TJ McConnell steals, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. He is in the right place at the right time because of his IQ and his just relentless pursuit of the basketball. Even if he's not involved in the action, he is just a dog, and he sniffs out. He really smells the blood in the water, and he goes after it, man. I mean, this guy, I talked about him in the last couple of pods, just how everyone should really love the TJ McConnell minutes as one of the more traditional point guards of the NBA. And this was a great first home game in 25 years for the Indiana Pacers fans. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a more happy ending for them. Obviously, the happier ending is going to be winning the championship if they're able to achieve that. So that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens in game 4. Now, in terms of the first punch, right? Because that's kind of how I want to go through with this. So first quarter, we get a tremendous Chet game. And I'm thinking, all right, I was talking about we haven't seen the Chet monster game. We're on course for that, right? 13-point first quarter. You get an incredible shooting display from Lou Dort. 9 points, 3 of 3 from 3. I mean, this guy, man, when you leave him open, that shot of his with the arc that it tells a story in the air, and that is a very long story when Lou Dort is shooting that ball. I mean, that thing, you're looking up and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and it leaves the camera shot sometimes, and you're just like, you don't know what's going to happen. So I can't imagine how that feels as the rest of the players, including his teammates, having to think about whether that shot's going to go in or not, and they're kind of like boxing out, and they're kind of just waiting around, maybe even having a conversation. That's how long the ball takes to come back down, and every time he cashes it in, it just looks so beautiful because of this the high arcing shot that it is. And yeah, so they had a great first quarter. By the way, so did Siakam. He gets those post-ups. Nothing's really happening for the Pacers. They kind of just dump it to Siakam, and Siakam is a really good one-on-one scorer from the free throw line and in. Just a relentless guy with really good footwork and has really good touch on his jumpers, on his fadeaways. A relentless guy at the basket as well. We could talk about the weak left hand, which honestly, it is true. He has a weak left hand, but this guy can finish at the rim, and he caused a lot of problems, man. He really kept the Pacers in the game with those points, those 7 points in the first quarter. Haliburton with the 5 points, the 1 steal, the 1 block. He was really doing a little bit of everything. He was uber aggressive in this game. We saw him coming off of a lot more chase action, which is something that we saw towards the end of that game too. So it was something that we could have expected to see a lot more of. And obviously he is very problematic, very hard to guard when he's coming off the chase actions and handoffs and all those things that happen in transition or even in the half half court when he's coming off pin downs and just, the spacing that the Pacers have, it just makes things very difficult. And, you get Obi Toppin with the 6 points to start the game, especially after having such a bad game too. Obi Toppin had a horrendous game, and he showed up this game on both ends, so really, really good response by Obi Toppin for sure. We get to the second quarter, and it's like the Pacers, they score 40 points in the second quarter, and it is just bucket after bucket after bucket from Mathurin. This was the Mathurin quarter. This was the Ben Mathurin game, but I had it marked down as the Mathurin quarter. He had 14 points on 5 of 6 from the field. He was also 3 for 3 from the free throw line. So this dude just doing everything. And, every championship team needs an irrational confidence guy coming off the bench or even as a starter. And look no further when you're looking for an irrational confidence guy than Ben Mathurin. This guy, whenever you give him the ball, he is just supremely confident in his ability to get a look. And he doesn't care how he's going to get it. He can do it off the dribble. He can do it off the catch. He can do it getting to the rim. He can do it in a myriad of ways. And it's awesome to watch him because I remember watching him play in FIBA when he was a little bit younger. And I was thinking, this dude has a lot of intangibles. He's got athleticism. He's got that dog in him. Now, the only thing that's missing from him, in my opinion, is on top of the fact of consistency. And that's hard to do because obviously the role that he plays on this team, he's really a spark plug that does get a lot of responsibility. But obviously when it comes to those bursts of minutes, it is hard to kind of find a groove. But the Pacers do a great job of just giving him the ball and letting him cook, right? Giving him his opportunities. And he has grown a lot as a player because he still does boneheaded plays from time to time, but when he's on, he is a problem. He may not want any part of Lou Dort guarding him, but he is not afraid of anybody out there, man. I mean, when he's in a pick and roll and he's just snaking that and he pulls up in the mid-range, the shot looks beautiful. I love Ben Mathurin's mechanics. And there was a shot also, I think it was a 3, might have been a corner 3, where he kind of like pump fakes it and then he pulls up later. I did not think he was going to make that shot because of the hesitation. And just in Ben Mathurin fashion, doesn't matter, right? Just he is so comfortable taking so many shots. And you love guys like that, in like a J.R. Smith kind of a way. No shot is a bad shot in Ben Mathurin's mind, and you really need that for sure. Just incredible game from him. I was under the impression that he was going to be a restricted free agent this season. He's actually going to be a restricted free agent next season, so after next season. And man, this would have been great timing for Ben Mathurin to get a big bag offer from an opposing team and put the Pacers in a tough scenario to where they're going to have to match the money. And, luckily for the Pacers, they don't have to worry about that until next season. So, very interesting little thing I was looking at as well. Quarter 3, it's Jalen and Shea, right? They're having a great third quarter. They combined for 18 points. And it's really the Haliburton show. Hallie just keeping it together and fighting off that thunderstorm. So, that was impressive stuff. I mean, this was a great Haliburton game. And, really nobody else showed up in that third quarter when you're looking down that box score. And, and I'm just remembering the shots from Haliburton. Just, he was cooking, man. And he's that kind of guy that when he shoots the ball, I at least feel like it's always going to go in. I mean, I'm one of the few people that likes the shot because of how weird it looks. A lot of people don't like it. They think it's ugly. And I understand. I'm not trying to sound like a unique person for saying that I like it, but there's something weird about just that set shot that he has that I just like how it looks. I would never think that that's like proper mechanics to teach how to shoot the ball, but there's something weird about it. I just like to watch. It is a funny thing to see. But yeah, man, he's just cash money. So such a threat from everywhere on the floor, especially when he puts the ball down and he gets to those floaters. You never feel like he's going to miss a floater. I mean, this dude's touch is incredible. We get to that fourth quarter, and in my opinion, it's really all about defense. The Thunder score 18 points in that fourth quarter. Let me look at my notes correctly. I'm pretty sure that was Thunder scored 18 points in this quarter, and the Pacers just absolutely put the Thunder in chains. You're looking at the combination of Shea, J-Dub, and Chet. They combined for 4 of 13 from the field. Anytime you're able to do that against the Thunder, you're in good shape. And that swarming defense by the Pacers was so overwhelming. And any pick and roll that Shea was taking, it was just, a guy's fighting over. The help defender is right there. They force Shea to travel on one of those scenarios. In fact, I want to go through these turnover clips now because I think now is the right time to go through it. And this may be painful to a lot of Thunder fans, but it's a part of this pod that I'm gonna have to show because it shows the excellence in execution by the Pacers. It also shows some grave mistakes by the Thunder that they're for sure gonna be correcting into Game 4, and they're gonna have to win Game 4 if they want a shot at winning this title. I really don't think the Thunder are gonna be able to win a championship if they lose this next game on the road. So the very first turnover from the Thunder, if anything, was going to be an indicator as to how this game was going to go in terms of watching the Pacers defense and wondering how it was going to hold up. This first turnover by the Thunder is probably indicative of what this was going to be. You got Shea fighting off the ball, right? He's just fighting with Nembhard for position, for space, and it's an offensive foul. And when I saw that, I was thinking to myself, okay, the Pacers are here to play. They're ready. They're going to show the fight, and the Thunder need to fight back, right? And I'm not, obviously, I would never even wonder if the Thunder are going to fight back or if they're going to welcome that battle because that's what they're all about. And you know what? That's what the Pacers are all about as well. And, that was that first turnover. Still looked pretty good for the Thunder overall in that first quarter. And let's get to another turnover here. So this one's by SGA. And you know what, man? A lot of this stuff, a lot of the mistakes that I saw from the Thunder is stagnant offense. And look, the Thunder, they were a heavy isolation team, very slow pace. Their fast pace was coming off of those fast break points off the turnovers. But in general, it's a lot of isolation. And if help shows, Shea makes the right decision. Someone cuts off the ball. The timing is impeccable from the Thunder, off-ball players, right? They know when to cut. If there's a foot in the paint from Shea, they're cutting off the ball. If a man's turning their head. But in this particular situation, and a lot of moments in this game, I'm seeing guys standing around, and help defense is not even looking at them. Like, in this clip specifically, Shea is just, he's dribbling, and you can see Wiggins on the corner, just standing there, right? And Ben Mathurin, back turned, right? Not in a good position to react if there's a quick backdoor cut, especially because he's got his eyes on Shea. And a lot of guys, like a Caruso, for example, he would cut and he gets a dunker spot, easy little 2 points from there, right? He's a really sneaky backdoor cutter. He puts a lot of pressure on the back line and the help defenders because, he just times those cuts really well. And look at Aaron Wiggins here. I mean, he's just standing there, man. And, that didn't help at all. So now, you get Shea waiting for Hartenstein to dive. And on that dive, shout out to TJ McConnell. I mean, he shows on the dive and he immediately reads that it's a skip pass. And he abandons the roll from Hartenstein and then goes and jumps that skip pass for the steal. That was incredible IQ by TJ McConnell. Great activity, way to patch up every single spot on the floor that was going to be a threat, and that was a turnover again for the Thunder. I'm going to show another turnover here. So on this one, this was the fault of both Shea and Chet Holmgren, right, in my opinion. And look, man, you're going to those pinch spots where at every single level of basketball, you can go to high school, you can go to middle school, college, the pros. That is a very nice hot spot for defenses to blitz and crowd and hopefully either force a turnover or get a deflection or force a jump ball, or force something bad to happen, right? And that's exactly what happens here. So Chet comes to set a screen, and in my opinion, if you're going to go there and set a screen, just ghost it. Right? Because those are the pinch spots. Those are the hot zones where, like I said, where teams like to blitz. So if you ghost that, the very worst, at the very least, what's going to happen is the defender that's on you when you go to set the screen, he's just going to follow you. And he's either going to stay and try to blitz that right, where Shea is in that spot, or he's going to follow Chet out into the corner, right? And, then we don't get that turnover. But, Chet, he flips it at the last second, but he stayed there just a little too long. And then the mistake by Shea, too, is turning his back, right? You get to that pinch spot, and then you're turning your back. I don't know if he was expecting the screen from Chet. Maybe he was, but you can't turn your back in that scenario because now he's blind to the help defense from Turner, and that's how we get that jump ball. So, I really didn't like that execution by either of those two guys. That's just not a place you want to be with your back turned, and not a place you want to be if you're calling for a screen, especially if you want the screen to stay, right? Or you want him to hold it for a long time. It's just not smart. Shea, right? Another high pick and roll. This is another turnover. And Haliburton comes all the way from the corner. Hallie may not be this incredible on-ball defender. He is a really good team defender. He's got length. He can jump pretty high. He's quick on his feet. And he's smart, as intelligent as it gets at that point guard position. And that helps him position himself on defense, right? Like if you're smart on one side of the ball, chances are you're probably going to be smart on the other side of the ball, right? Even if you're not a capable defender, you can at least use your IQ to be a good team defender. And here's Haliburton cheating all the way from the corner, right? Some people will call that a peel switch, right? Some people on the Pacers side of things will call it nexting, like when people just go next to the next matchup. And that's something that happens on those pick and roll defensive situations where a guy fights over the screen and then their job is to basically pick up the next matchup. And then their help defender is going to show and kind of plug on that drive. Now, in this case, because the screen happens so far away, Hallie's actually able to anticipate the roll pass, right? The pass to Chet, who's diving, and he gets that steal, and Shea was just a little bit late on that pass as well. So that's kind of what happens in that scenario. There's another turnover where it's like some fundamentals by Siakam, and these are the things that they teach you at the high school level, at the middle school level, and it's where, coaches will want you to be physical with off-ball cutters, right? They don't want off-ball cutters to feel free and not get bumped on the way to the basket or like when they're making their little cuts, even if they're not going to be involved in an action. And one of the things that the Thunder love to do is they have this little two-man give and go between Hartenstein and Caruso. Hartenstein is just a great passer, and Caruso will fake a screen and then immediately cut. So he'll basically ghost and then cut to the basket. And Hartenstein will throw it before the cut is even made a lot of the times. And that's what helps get the ball to a cutter in stride. And that's how the Thunder get a lot of those easy little baskets, right? And because Siakam is, physical off the ball and he keeps his hands on Caruso, it's just enough to bother Caruso and delay him away from that catch. And it was another turnover for the Thunder. So, really good moment for Siakam there defensively, and a nice little teaching point for any of the young hoopers out there kind of watching, how important it is to stay on top of your matchup, even if he doesn't have the ball, right? Or maybe if he doesn't look like he's going to be involved in a play, those things matter. And, one last turnover I want to show was the SGA travel. And this is what help defense does, right? You're not going to see Shea travel often. This guy has some of the best footwork in the entire league. And, when he traveled, you could just tell he was completely out of whack. The help defense was right there on the switches because he's asking for these screens. And all of a sudden, it's Shea kind of turning his head. He's spinning around, and help defense has already cut off his teammate who was potentially going to be open. And all of a sudden, he catches himself traveling, and it's another turnover. And that was just really good defense by the Pacers, right? So, and man, some of those turnovers, if you're a Thunder fan, they got to drive you nuts. I mean, the Caruso inbound problem, the Case and Wallace inbound problem. So really bad moments from the Thunder. And I got to give credit to the pick and roll defense from the Pacers, right? Like these guys were being very physical with the on-ball screener, shoving him out of the way, whether it was Hartenstein or Caruso or Wallace or Dort. These Pacer guys were guarding that screener with a lot of intensity, a lot of focus. There was a big emphasis on telling these guys like, hey man, we are allowing these screens to be set way too efficiently. Like there is no resistance, right? Like we may be fighting over a lot of these screens, but we're not really pushing off. We're not handsy enough. We're not physical enough. And you could tell when Shea's asking for those pick and rolls, like those screens, whether they're going to flip them or they're just going to ghost them and roll, the Pacers were not having that. They were just fighting that every single time down the floor, and it was milking a lot of shot clock from the Thunder, and that played right into the hands of the Pacers. And, Shea finds himself, there's about 8 seconds, and 8 seconds is a long time for one of the most elite scorers in the league to figure out a bucket. But in that chaos, 8 seconds is an awkward amount of time where you think, I have just enough time to create a shot, maybe draw a help defender and make a kick out, but I also don't have enough time to process a lot of things, right? It's just that awkward time where you may be feeling like you're sped up because of how intense and how physical this game really is with the Pacers. And in a lot of ways, the Thunder have been really predictable. They give the ball to Shea every time down the floor, whether it's an ATO, right? And it comes to the point where the Pacers are like, no, we're going to overload Shea's side. We don't care how many screens Shea's coming off of. Whoever is there on the help is going to block off Shea. And it forces Hartenstein to flash out and catch it. There's a couple of seconds being wasted there because we know they really want to get it to Shea. And for good reason, right? This guy is the best player on the floor. MVP, of course. But you become predictable. And it's why I liked Jalen Williams' aggressiveness this game. I liked Chet Holmgren's aggressiveness this game. But if that's going to be the formula, like if the Thunder are going to struggle with being predictable and still giving the ball to Shea and hoping that it takes you home, the Pacers are in good shape, because I worry about a team looking predictable. Because now all of a sudden, in a series where there's a lot of film and there's a lot of time to prepare for the next play and look over possessions, and it's the same matchup you're going to face for 7 games potentially. You're going to be very prepared to take option A, B, C away, right? And the Pacers were so prepared in Game 3. They looked incredible. Hats off to them. They played an amazing game on both ends. I wouldn't say they were incredible on offense. Like, if you're the Pacers, you're thinking, we didn't even play our best game. Like, we played our best game defensively, but we did not play Pacers basketball on offense, like, in general, right? The three-point shooting wasn't really there. They were kind of struggling to make a lot of shots, but it was their defense that came along, right? That's what pulled them through this game in an OKC kind of a way. Right? So, this really showed the Thunder that, hey, the Pacers don't have to shoot it well to win a game in this series. Do I think that's going to be sustainable? I don't think so. Like, I don't think, because down the stretch, like, if you really look possession to possession, if you want to go through all those turnovers, and even field goal attempts, a lot of those were really good defense by the Pacers. A lot of the mistakes were self-inflicted. If you're looking at the Thunder side of things, the Thunder, they made a lot of stupid mistakes. Jalen Williams, obviously the numbers, this is his best statistical game in the series, and I wasn't happy with the way he played. Free throws, I don't trust him when he's shooting free throws. Similar to Chet, right? Like, these are guys that I expect to make free throws because of their skill, right? Their shot-making ability. But these are two guys that I have a hard time trusting when they get to the line. And I say it every time these guys step to the line. And, they're just the kind of guys that, you don't know. They may split free throws for a while and then all of a sudden be hot and make a lot in a row. They're just these guys that I still don't trust at the free throw line. And, you can disagree with me all you want. The percentages are going to be on my side, right? That tells you the entire story. These guys, after this season, they got to get into that gym, man. And free throws, and threes, and just jump shooting, because Chet, he comes into the league being this, unicorn-esque guy, and he really is a unicorn. He protects the rim incredibly well with the size he has, which we expect, has really good footwork, has great ball skills. He can put the ball down in transition with guards in front of him, and he can dribble around him and get to the rim and dunk on people. He is a very good passer. I think people sleep on his passing ability, to be honest. So he's got all those skills. He comes into this league, and I remember him on draft night talking about, I'm going to be a 50, 40, 90 guy. Like, that's my goal. Well, if that's your goal, then you can't be a 70%-ish, right? Like in the 70s as a free throw shooter. Like, I'm expecting 80s minimum from a guy like Chet Holmgren. So he's got to get back into the lab when it comes to the jump shooting stuff. Same thing with Jalen Williams. I just like I said, I don't feel comfortable watching these guys shoot free throws. I just don't. I love watching Jalen Williams get to the rim, though. I mean, this guy can do it. And, sometimes, I am so impressed with the Pacers' rim protection in Game 3 specifically. Just being able to really absorb Jalen Williams' contact and block his layups, right? And, just kind of, really be there for the battle on the attack. The really good stuff, man. And shout out to Miles Turner, who he was just a beast with the blocks, man. He was incredible in Game 3 for sure, man. I mean, his hands were all over the ball. He blocked Chet twice. Once at the three-point line. That was incredible. And then he recovers and he catches Chet on the drive. We talk about Chet's quickness for his size, but he is right there along for the ride, and he blocks Chet again. And the crowd goes crazy. TJ McConnell, incredible game. Ben Mathurin, awesome. Tyrese Haliburton, Obi Toppin, Andrew Nembhard defensively. You couldn't ask for more. I mean, these guys played great, and they could have played better. So if you're the Thunder, I think there is some cause for concern, because you're thinking, hey, man, these guys beat us. They didn't shoot it well, for a lot of possessions. The Thunder played like boneheads for a lot of possessions. I mean, it was a lot of bad turnovers, a lot of bad shots, and they didn't look prepared in this game for that attack from the Pacers. They punched a lot. I got to give them their credit. They came out in that third quarter, and I was like, all right, cool. Finished the third quarter. I think they were up 5. I think it was like 89-84 or something like that. And I'm thinking, all right, the Thunder they're not messing around. And then, we see what happened in that fourth quarter. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will catch you guys on the next one.